Hello, everyone, and welcome to Exploring Consciousness. This is our fifth meditation, and today I want to talk to you about mistakes, about making mistakes when we're on a spiritual path and what that could mean for us. But before we do that, let's take some time to settle into the present moment so that we are more present in the now. And a good way to do that is to pay attention to the body, to notice what you're carrying around, what you brought here with you today. So just checking in a light way. So we could use the breath, or maybe we can ask the question, how am I feeling right now? What is going on inside of me? And then just observing whatever comes to the foreground. And we're not trying to get rid of discomfort by doing this, or trying to feel better, or even to become more focused or more relaxed. We're just observing what's appearing in our experience when we look inside. Just breathing into the body. In a kind and friendly way. It's a gesture of welcoming. So however you're feeling right now, it's okay. See what happens if you allow your present experience to be just as it is. Pay attention to the sensations in the body. And let your mind just melt. Drop from the head down into the trunk of your body. And just rest. So, we all make mistakes every day. We're all human, after all. And as humans, we are fallible. We're full of conflicting emotions and thoughts and desires and aversions that make us do foolish things, unskillful things, even harmful things sometimes. And that can be very difficult to work skillfully with on the spiritual path that has this holy image of how everyone should act and all these rules and guidelines and sins that you should avoid. And it's, if we look at it in a very step-by-step way, then it's impossible to uphold all the moral codes and rules that religions and spirituality has. So that can leave us with a feeling of not being good enough, of not being worthy to practice or to become enlightened. That can even leave us with the feeling that we're not a good human being. So that's something I want to talk to you today about. How can we be a normal human being who makes mistakes and still be planted firmly on the spiritual path? Well, no matter what we do, we will make mistakes. So what we have to do if we want to work with those mistakes in a skillful way, and we have to do it, otherwise we're just pretending, or we might be doing something called spiritual bypassing, where we're just ignoring every harmful behavior we have and pretending to be someone we're not. And that's not very helpful if we are serious about spirituality and awakening, and if we want to develop our meditation practice. So I want to share with you some methods today, how we can work with our mistakes in a skillful way, and how we can try to prevent those mistakes from happening, and at least to minimize the damage those mistakes can create. But before we do that, let's just notice that it's so easy to make mistakes. We live in such a stressful world, and everyone is overworked and overwhelmed. Our emotions tend to get the better of us, and most of us are caught in a very limiting self-image and self-thought. So our thoughts tend to create an image of ourselves where we're very low and where we're not good enough. So our mind likes to point out our own flaws. That's why we also judge others and see the flaws of others so easily, because it's a repeating dialogue that we have with ourselves of pointing out our own flaws. So we need to really notice that dialogue is going on, and that we need to try to minimize that by not believing in it so much, and try to cultivate a positive self-talk and self-image. And that really takes time. It takes a long time, but it's definitely worth it to invest in, to be more compassionate to yourself, to be more loving to yourself. Otherwise, we won't be able to be truly compassionate towards others if we're not able to be compassionate towards ourselves. So I think especially today, in today's world, it's very important. So now I would like to also say that it's important to practice when we're feeling calm and good and safe and relaxed, when we have all the necessary conditions to make our practice easy, because when we need those practices to help us when we're caught in an emotional reaction or an intense situation, then it's too late to practice, because then we're already caught and then we're already drowning in that energy. So we really have to take the time to practice these methods, which I will present to you now, as much as possible when we are calm and when everything is fine. And then slowly it will bleed into our life. It will gradually melt into our everyday life, and it will spontaneously appear in those situations when we need it, because we become more and more familiar with it. It starts taking roots in our mind, so it becomes more accessible. So the first practice I would like to introduce you to is something you've probably heard about many times, but had difficulties actually doing when you needed it. And that's the practice of pausing. So if you're having an argument with your partner, for example, and the argument is getting more and more heated, and now it starts to turn into a fight, and everything both of you say is no longer constructive, is just expressing pain, hurt, and emotions, and you're just making it worse. That's the point where you should say, okay, pause. We need a timeout. I'm gonna go for a walk. Let me chill out. And then we can continue our discussion, because then it will be much more constructive. So the way we can practice this, so we have access to this when we're caught in an argument, is by practicing the pause when everything is going well. So when we're relaxed and the sun is shining and we're sitting outdoors and having a picnic, then we pause. So we stop for a moment, stop with what we're doing, and we observe what's going on in the present moment. Maybe look up into the sky. So we take a short mental break from our activity. And then we resume our activity and go about our day as we did before. But that small pause can make a big difference, especially when you're in the middle of a fight. After a certain point, anything you say only just makes it worse. So it's just best to wait until both parties have calmed down. So practice the pause. You can practice the pause anytime with no matter what activity you're doing, even the pause between two words that you're saying or the pause between two thoughts you're having. There's a pause right there. So just notice it and relax into that pause. And then slowly, you can try more difficult situations to practice it in. So that's one. The next practice I would like to talk to you about is the breath. So breathing is a fantastic tool if you want to work with intense situations, because whenever we're caught in an emotion, our breathing changes. So if we investigate into the breath, we might notice that when we're angry, we might be breathing in a very powerful way. We have strong inhales and strong exhales. When we're feeling sad or depressed, our breathing might be very shallow, almost like we're holding our breath inside because we're feeling a hurt or a contraction. And just by noticing the breath, maybe by asking the question like, how is it that I'm breathing? How is my breath right now? The breath can change. There is something in the human mind that as soon as you become aware of something in the body, in this case, how we're breathing, the rhythm of our breath, then it naturally finds a balance, a natural rhythm to it. So this is true for the breathing and for emotions and for basically everything in our minds. So as soon as we observe it, it naturally liberates itself, they say in Buddhism. So really pay attention to the breath. So the easiest way to do that is when you're sitting on the cushion and you're doing your formal meditation practice, then the breath is really there in the foreground and it's so easy to pay attention to it and notice how it goes in and out. You can pay attention to the nostrils and the sensation of the air passing through it. You can pay attention to the belly, how it rises, goes in and out. There are many ways you can pay attention to the breath. And then when you become accustomed to it, when you can become familiar with it, then you can increase that observation and bring it into more and more difficult and intense situations. And then in a very intense situations, when you're feeling stress, you might just remember, oh, how is my breath? And that can make a huge difference in a stressed out situation. So another practice is movement. And in here, I'm also talking about touching the sore spots in your body where you feel you have a contraction, moving your body in certain ways. If you're doing yoga, you're probably already familiar with many different postures that are helpful in different kinds of emotions. But really, just a small movement, like rocking your body like this from side to side, can make such a big difference when we're feeling contracted. That's why certain mudras, like one I showed you a few meditations ago, the mudra of self-compassion, this can make a big difference when we're feeling hurt or sad, notice how we instinctually want to crawl into the fetal position with our knees on top of our chest, almost like we're giving ourselves a big hug. So the human body is wired to respond to touch and to movement. So it really has a big effect on our internal world and our emotions. And maybe we would like to dance. So some people are naturally attuned to dancing and love to dance. And so dancing can be a meditation where you totally relax and you are present in the now. So experiment with that. See what can help me in these situations that I find difficult. Is there some way I could move, stretch my body? Where does it hurt in my body? Does it help if I put my hand on that spot? Okay. Yeah. Oh, and singing. So another way to work with intense emotions is to sing. And if you're like me and you don't have a beautiful singing voice, then you might not feel comfortable with singing in public, and that's fine. And you don't really have to sing. It might be enough to just make a sound. So mantras are very common in meditation practices, and the reason for that is the power of sound and vibration has a great effect on our emotions and our perception. So we can experiment, and if you have a mantra that you feel connected to, that resonates with you, then use that. If you don't, you can try to see like what happens if I just make the sound of a vowel. Like if I say ah or om. Does different sounds affect different parts of my body? So you have to experiment for yourself and see. So if you have a song that you love, so just singing it in the shower when nobody can hear you can really lift your spirits. So if you're having a bad day, and even if you don't feel like singing, just starting to hum a bit can help you. And in my own experience, if I'm feeling a contraction or a pain somewhere in my body, if I, for example, my heart, if it feels closed and hurt, then just making a sound and a vibration and focusing it on that point, not to remove it, not so that it goes away, but to take care of it as a form of healing and taking care of it. And that can make a big difference. It's almost like it can vibrate that painful sensation, and so that it relaxes. It's a form of massage, really, an energy massage. Now, probably this method won't be so effective if you're at work and having a discussion with your boss and suddenly starting to say a mantra out loud. But the fantastic thing about mantras is once you're really familiar with a certain mantra, then you can do it silently. You can do it internally and nobody will hear, but still that mantra will continue to go on and the vibration can be felt subtly inside your body. So find a good mantra and practice it. So it will be accessible to you when you really need it in difficult moments of your life. No? What do we have more? Reframing. So that's a good practice. And that's basically just looking at the situation and then changing how you view it. So if you're having a fight with someone, then instead of looking at that person as your enemy, as the person who has just hurt you, as the person who's done something wrong and bad, you can look at that person as someone who is suffering. In other words, that person right now who is yelling at you, who's screaming, that person is caught in their own emotional reactions, and they're so overwhelmed by that they have lost control over their own words, over their own actions. They've become totally caught in the story going on inside their head, and they've actually lost touch with reality. When we become totally overwhelmed by an emotion, it's like we're wearing colored glasses. So you might notice when you're angry, then everything in the world seems to be colored red. What I mean by that is everything seems to be there just to annoy you. There are so many things that can make you angry and keep that anger in motion once you are angry. But the same thing applies to all emotions. So when we're feeling happy and in love, then we see everything through that lens. And suddenly we think the whole world should feel this way because everything is fantastic and life is wonderful and life is great. But that's just because the color of your lens has shifted. So really noticing how easy it is to become caught by emotions and how it colors our whole experience and how easy it is to believe in them. And the thoughts really reinforce that emotion and that shift in perception. So the inner voice in your head really confirms, yes, this is how it is, this is the way it is. And we believe it. Because it's so convincing, it feels so real. So feeling and reality is intimately connected inside of us, but if we look at it logically, if we investigate, we know that, okay, the world and reality is not how I think or feel it is. So if I change the way I think about something, the way I view something, then the feeling will change. So it's a simple trick. So instead of viewing that person as your enemy, you view him as a poor being who's just gotten caught by their own emotional reactions, and they're temporarily obscured from reality. So looking at it like that, oh, this person is suffering, then instead of becoming even more angry and starting to defend and argue because that person is wrong and you are right, then we can see, maybe I can be compassionate to this person because this person right now is suffering. They're caught in their emotional reactions. just like I am sometimes. I am also caught sometimes in my emotional reactions, and I say foolish things which I later regret. So knowing this makes it so much easier to forgive others and to ask for forgiveness when we are the ones who make mistakes, when we fuck up and do something foolish. So the quicker we're able to ask for forgiveness and the quicker we're able to forgive others, the easier it will be, the quicker a resolution will appear inside of us and we can go back to living a more centered life. So really practicing the reframing and in as many situations as possible, and you can be creative, but the key here is to know that people who make mistakes, they are suffering and they are just like me. They get caught by their emotions. So let's forgive them. Okay, what do I have more? Let me just check the time. Okay, time's flying. I have a few more. Let me just bring up one more relative practice, because I find it very useful, is remembering that whatever you're feeling, whatever you're experiencing, whatever is going on in your life, it's temporary. You don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know if it's going to get worse before it gets better, but that's not important. What's important is just reminding yourself that, okay, this is how I feel and this is temporary. It will pass. It will change. Already it is changing slowly. So knowing that can give you a bit more space, and it can also keep you from overreacting when something difficult happens, because you can catch yourself say, okay, right now it appears to be this way, but I know that soon it will appear to be in another way. So just knowing that can give you a little bit of self-control, to not totally fall into believing the story around that event. So this too shall pass. And that you can actually practice with good emotions, good feelings. So you don't get so hooked and addicted to them that you want more and more of them, because you know that, this too shall pass. Right now, my life is going wonderfully. I have everything I want. Everyone is healthy, happy. I have more money than I need. I'm going on a vacation. Oh, this is really, really great. I'm happy, but this too shall pass. This too shall pass. So that will make it easier when it does pass, because you're prepared. Because you know reality for how it actually is. So instead of living in a fantasy that everything is going to work out and stay that way, you know that everything is impermanent. Everything is changing. the good, the bad. It will help you to be more relaxed with the ups and downs of life. Now let me talk to you about the best practice, my favorite practice, the only practice which can truly help you. I call it, or it's called, the loving gaze. So basically, it's the practice I've already introduced you to of shifting your attention to awareness itself, of shifting your sense of identity from the small mini-me and its stories of hurt to the open, clear, radiant space which knows that experience. And then just observing whatever is going on in your experience, whatever is going on inside of you as that space. So this is not denying what's going on. This is not pushing away the pain by not paying attention to it. No, you are paying direct attention to the pain, but not as the small hurt I. You're paying attention to it as that indescribable knowing which is always present in your experience, but rarely seen. So practicing this when you're not caught in a difficult situation is also a must. So the more and more familiar you become with shifting and then resting as that and viewing your experience from that space, the easier it will be to access it, even in difficult situations. So at first you may notice that, wow, this is too difficult because our mind is so accustomed to following the movements, the suggestions going on inside. But the more and more you become accustomed to shifting, the less and less you will believe in the stories in the head and the movements in the body. So when you take that step back from the situation, this is a figurative step back because you're not actually moving your awareness. You're just recognizing that unconditioned awareness, which is not affected by anything that's going on in your experience. It is not affected by the pain or the pleasure you're experiencing. So it doesn't matter if you are depressed or angry, or if you're happy and feeling calm and open-minded and blissful, that awareness remains unchanged. It is the same regardless. However, when you're feeling calm, relaxed, warm-hearted, open-minded, loving, all these positive emotions, which we call them positive, they are helpful because they make it easier to recognize awareness because we're not in a conflict right then and there. So they can be helpful to us. But when we're in a difficult state, when we're feeling angry or depressed, then usually the energy of the emotions are so heavy that we're unable to make that shift. Even if we recognize awareness in those points, it may be difficult to really go deep in our recognition, and we get sucked back into the story and the drama unfolding. So really practicing this, to just shifting to first be aware of awareness, and then recognize that you are awareness, and viewing everything as awareness. So this is the loving gaze, because awareness is in its very nature loving. It is gentle, it is warm. When you are aware of the contractions in your body, the pain, and you just observe them, then it's almost like healing hands are coming from that space and touching it, healing it, giving it a soft massage. And if we become really familiar with this practice, then all emotions, all conflicts, all contractions will begin to self-liberate in that light. So just by paying attention to whatever is going on, peace will begin to unfold step by step. The pain will diminish, and joy will start to bloom in your experience. Because you no longer believe the voice in your head. You're just observing. You just observe, and everything happens by itself. Everything becomes self-liberated. You just shine the light on it and allow it to move as it needs to. Eventually it will find its place, and it will dissolve right back into that space from which it arose. So that was the practice I wanted to share with you today. It's the practice that's closest to my heart, which I try to bring into every moment of my life. So I hope this inspired you to practice and to find your own methods and to be creative in using those methods in your everyday life. And I also hope that really acknowledging how difficult it is to be a human and how easy it is to make mistakes, that you will become more forgiving of others when they make mistakes. And also that you will learn to ask for forgiveness and to be honest and confess that you made the mistake because you were overwhelmed, you were caught by an emotional reaction going on inside of you, and that you're sorry for losing control, and that you will try to do better next time and to really practice, to really try to become a better person, not just for yourself, but for all beings, for your family, for your loved ones. So then you're practicing the Dharma in a good way. And then slowly, if we practice this, then we will come to the recognition of who we really are. So we're not this small self, this small ego, that voice in our head, that story going on. We're much bigger than that. So may all of you have many recognitions of that, and may your lives be filled with happy moments. And when mistakes arise, when difficult moments arise, and when you make mistakes, let that be an opportunity to learn. So know that there is nothing wrong with you. You are a human being, and you will make mistakes for the rest of your life. All of us will. So let's try to do the best we can, and let's be satisfied with the results. So now we can discuss with each other and share. If you have any thoughts, then I will be glad to hear them. And if you have any questions, then I will do my best to try to answer them. So, and everyone at home, I wish you a great day. Bye.